everyone, and welcome back to Impact with Cyber, where we explore how trust, inclusion, and impact redefine the future of cybersecurity. I'm your host, Moinul Chowdhury, a passionate cybersecurity leader advocate for human-first, purpose-driven security. If this is your first time joining us, Impact with Cyber is just not a video vlog. It's a movement, a space to humanize cybersecurity, to bring trust and purpose into the center of our strategy, to bring about cyber not just as a control, but as a commitment to people, to leadership, and to our collective digital future. Today's episode is really a special one because we are not just continuing the conversation, we're expanding it. I'm honored to welcome our first ever guest, someone who lives and breathes the value we talk about on this show. Joining us today is Bashir Semakula, respected cybersecurity leader, trusted advisor, and a CISO, who also co-owns his own cyber practice. Bashir provides strategic guidance to organizations, including government agencies, helping them build secure, resilient environments grounded in purpose, integrity, and real-world impact. He's someone who understands that cybersecurity is not just a technical role, it's a leadership mission. Bashir, thank you so much for being here today, and more importantly, for being the first guest to join this growing dialogue around cyber and trust. Let's kick off with a quick intro. Tell us a bit about yourself, your journey, and what drives you in this space. The mic is yours.
Yeah, my name is Bashir Semakula, and I'm a cybersecurity professional in Brisbane, and with over 19 years of experience in the IT and cybersecurity industry. Yeah, so I got into cybersecurity, I would say, by luck through my undergrad. There was a course that really interested me, and then I said maybe this is something that is worth exploring. Then I got interested, and I decided to go on and do some further study in cybersecurity, and that's how I got into this industry. I found that the industry is quite has evolved, and obviously I have my background is from Uganda, less mature country in terms of cybersecurity, and coming to Australia is a bit more mature, but even here there's still some challenges in various levels of cybersecurity. The industry itself, there's a few challenges, and that brings me to something that I'm really passionate about. I like to help others to get into the industry because I understand some of the challenges. I've gone through the challenges, and I believe that helping another person to get into this industry and see them thrive is would be fulfilling to me, but also helping them progress their career. So yeah, that's my background and how I got into the industry.
Thank you, Bashir. And I really love that you bring such a grounded values-based perspective to cyber. Let's start with something really big, which is trust. How do you personally define the role of trust in cybersecurity, and why do you think it's still so hard for some businesses, business leaders, to see cyber as more than just a compliance checklist?
Yeah, so to me, trust is the backbone of currency of cybersecurity. It's where everything about cybersecurity is built onto. It underpins everything on cybersecurity. When customers giving you their data, they trust that you're going to keep it safe. When you hire someone in a role, you trust that they are going to do that job really well. As a cyber leader, when the executive put you in that position, they trust that you're going to be doing that job really well. Even your team trust that you're advocating for the team and advocating for that for the cybersecurity team or for cybersecurity. So it's to me it's the currency, it's the backbone, and I think it's something that we still don't get right. There's various levels of maturity, whether from the employees or the teams or the middle management or the leaders. There's some varying levels of maturity that is coming up. Obviously, it varies from company to company, but I think there's still a lot to be done. Addressing the issue of leaders seeing it as a compliance exercise. I mean, where we are right now is where work health and safety used to be a few years ago until few people died, and then regulations came in, and everything became very tight. So right now, what's happening with cyber, where we're at right now, I think we're at that spot. What some companies are still doing, they're still thinking, oh, cybersecurity, is out there. It's the IT. It's an IT problem. They deal with everything. As the leaders, we blame them for everything. But to me, that's not right. And I think we're at that stage where work health and safety used to be, where safety was the responsibility of the safety officer until all that happened. So I think until cybersecurity, until leaders, we see cybersecurity as the WHS of the technology world, I think some of this is not going to change. We're still going to see leaders or organizations seeing it as a compliance exercise, tick the box and go away. And because there's been no real tangible consequence for cyber incidents. There's been a few, with locally within Australia, but also globally, and there haven't been any, as far as I know, in Australia, where leaders have been taken to court, just like what happened in the US, where the Uber CISO went up to court. Hasn't happened, but I think it's maturing. It's getting there. There's been some duties that have been made mandatory for boards, but we're yet to see the enforcement of that. So I think until there's proper regulation that companies can or individuals to say that are meant to be responsible for people's data, people's information are taken to court, and there's proper consequences. We're still going to be seeing leaders seeing cybersecurity as a compliance exercise, stick and flick, because we're seeing incidents happening quite a lot. So it's still a big problem.
Oh, that's such an important distinction. Seeing cyber as a strategic enabler, not just a technical gatekeeper, it really makes sense. I want to take this further and ground it into the people element of it, because at Impact with Cyber, we believe every security decisions impacts someone directly or indirectly. In your experience, what are the real world implications and moral dilemmas that arise when cybersecurity decisions are made without considering the people behind the systems?
Yeah, I think there's a few real world experience implications, sorry, of um, cybersecurity. If it's the human side of cybersecurity is ignored, the big one is not considering the impact of the controls that you have in place and how they are going to impact either the users or customers. The harder you make it for customers to use your service, if they have to jump all these hoops, then it's going to be difficult for that customer to interact with you. Or if they must, in some instances where they must, then they always run to, having to deal with with that website or with your organization. So there might be some implications on the business where there's no real desire to interact with the organization. But then on the other side, like if the controls that you have in place are not stringent enough, there's the other human side where, in most instances, the privacy implications, if data is stolen, you're not having the right controls to protect this information. If that happens, then you're going to violate the privacy of these individuals, and it's difficult to compensate for loss of privacy. They might give you all these things, but over the term of maybe 20 years, the implications might be subtle over the years, but there's real implications. Some people really get anxious if someone knows their address. If imagine if it's a domestic violence survivor, and whoever has that information, their address, where they move to, sort of doesn't have enough controls, and that information leaks to the perpetrators. It's violating that privacy, so that that individual can end up having some um, impacts to their health or to their well-being. Um, I think the other one would be to internally within the organization. I think when we define the policies, when we define uh, controls, when we design controls, in most cases, we need to think of the users within the organization that are going to interact with this system. Are you going through the proper change management? Are you having some test users from the normal users that are going to use this system? There's a popular picture that is shared on social media. It's a very good analogy where they have there's like cemented footpath that was done very well, say by the council, but people don't like to use that. They make their own through the grass, and this is what happens if it's difficult when you put in processes and controls within the organization, and people don't want to interact with, say, IT because they know, oh, you want to check a million things before you allow us to go and buy this fancy tool that we want to buy today. So I think it's considering the users or the customers on the other side of that control. I think it's important. Otherwise, it's trying to balance that, the security, but also the usability, have to come, have to be hand in hand. And it's and again, many organizations would need to want to consider um, their risk appetites, obviously, but also, the more security controls you have in place, the in most cases the less usability. So you have to use your risk appetite to help you guide how much security and how much usability. But usability, especially for customer, make it as easy as possible for them to use it.
Well, that perspective is really powerful, Bashir, and it really highlights how leadership and ethics are inseparable in a way in cyber today. So, for leaders listening today, those who get it but maybe don't know how to start the shift, what advice would you give to other leaders who want to embed cybersecurity into their organization's culture, not just as a technical requirement but as a social responsibility?
So yeah, I think um, my advice to cyber leaders would be taking full responsibility of cybersecurity, not just by lip service. And I use that very strongly because, many organizations or executive, they say we take cybersecurity seriously, but you can't see that. So I think by the executive taking that shared responsibility and leading from the front, they should be the ones, just like they do with, WHS. Like I said earlier, there's too many posters around. They talk about this in meetings. The first thing you do when you start a new role or you go to a new site is the WHS. Even in the meeting, it should be the same for cybersecurity because it's protecting lives of people in people's information, because it could mean everything. So that's one. I think the second thing is training people. I think is really important because when you hire someone, you trust that they're going to do a good job. You really want to give them the tools and the capabilities um, they need to actually do that job really well. There's in a few cases, um, people might already have those skills, and this is what organizations try to do because they don't want to get someone then have to train them. But even when they're in the role, it's important for them to constantly, because the threat landscape keeps changing. They need to constantly be trained to have those skills to continue to deliver a stellar cybersecurity um, uh, cybersecurity posture or organization, keeping everyone's information safe. Needs it right, same as the best skills that they can have at the time. So it's important that leaders train. It's just the same as you cannot send, you know, if you're working in mine, you cannot send someone in a mine without the big helmet and the high vis. It's the same thing as cyber. You need to give them the tools. You need to give them the support. You need to give them the training that they need to actually deliver that service. Many instances, leaders say, "Yeah, we take cybersecurity seriously." It's one person team, two people team, for example. They can barely scratch the surface. So I think also I think the last that I would give is rewarding. I think the last thing I would say is the culture as well. I think that will be my one of the most important ones. So what I see in some organizations is there's a lot of willingness for teams to do things, but there's not support from executives to make these things happen. So it's that culture of building constant responsibility across the organization. It's the whole organization needs to be aware that we are protecting lives because by holding someone's information, you're holding their life because it could be as little as their email address. If they are sent a fish because you did not have the right control, so you're protecting lives. So it's important to have that message across the entire organization, because what it means, you're showing that you care about this thing, and you care about the role that um, cybersecurity is playing in protecting people's lives. You're basically elevating cybersecurity to the level of WHS.
Thank you, Bashir. It was such a valuable conversation, to tell you the truth. The work you do, the guidance you give, and the way you lead with purpose is exactly what we hope to spotlight on Impact with Cyber. To everyone watching or listening today, cybersecurity is no longer just about firewalls and frameworks. It's about people, decisions, and trust. And that starts with conversation just like this. Thanks again, Bashir, and thank you all for being part of the movement. We will see you in the next episode again. Bye for now. Thanks.